Hey guys, it's boy KB from KB Video Services, and I am here to talk to you guys about something that, well, first, before I get into this, let me actually explain what I'm doing, why am I wearing a cowboy hat, what's going on. Basically, we all know that I've always wanted to make videos. I've made small attempts over the years. Anyone who's been supporting me since back in the rec days knows I used to have rec reviews. I do like making online content. I just find it fun, and I really just want to make stuff. Now, is all this stuff gonna probably just end up being something that someone random in 10 years, they're looking for an answer on how to set up a Fisher 10 dolly, and I happen to in one video mention about it, and then it pops up on their YouTube feed and it has 30 views? Maybe, but that's not why you should do anything, is for anything like that. This is because I want to make stuff, because there are a lot of things in our field that no one talks about, and I just want to talk about them. So for this first video, to start off strong, I'm going to talk about 5 things and I'll tell you about freelancing and film. So first, let's get right on into it. The first thing is that film, freelancing and film, anything in this video, and I would even debate and say photography space, it's not about talent, especially when you're working with crews. Now, if you're an individual, like if you're a one-man band, photographer, videographer, it's much, and you do weddings and things, it is going to be much more about taste and style and visual components. But if you work on a lot of larger stuff, whether it be corporate, commercial, or narrative movie sets, while talent is, you can't be bad at your job, right? Like, I don't want to sit there and make people think that I'm saying that anyone can do it. That isn't the case. There is like a baseline you need to pass here to work it, right? But after that, often the best people don't always get the most jobs. It becomes less about talent after a certain extent, and it becomes about likability and working with people. How does this person work on a team? Now, I've worked on crews where it's a bunch of talented, but maybe not the best person to ever do the job in the field people. And they've had a lot of success. And a lot of people like that have a ton of success because they're very well likable. Like, this job leans into extroverts and people who are friendly and kind and well liked. And not to say that if you're not an extrovert that you're gonna have trouble, but I have a mentor named Charlie, and he told me that working in this industry is often like working on a boat. Now, if you're gonna be out at sea for 6 months and you can hire 2 guys to be out there with you, who are you gonna hire? You're gonna hire 2 of your buddies who can do the job. You might not hire the best fisherman and the best sailor, but you're gonna hire the fisherman and the sailor that you want to be out there for 6 months with. So that's the thing to keep in mind when you're doing everything and you're making these connections, that you do not want to. It's just an important aspect of things, is you have to be likable, and you have to do things. Not you have to do things, that sounds wrong, but you can't go around and just because you're talented be mean to people, because people are going to hire you. It doesn't matter who you are or how good you are. If you're not good at your job, you're not going to get the job. Next, don't take things personally. This job, there is a finite amount of positions and roles on anything. I have worked some jobs that, other people have been like, why am I'm available. Why aren't I in the movie? And I have been looking outside in on jobs like that other people have worked that I haven't gotten to work. And you can't take that personally, because again, since it is so likability based, it is also so much out of sight, out of mind is a big component for a lot of people when hiring. One of the best advice I give anyone, including myself, is I routinely make sure you stay in contact with people, because very literally I've been guilty of this. So I've sit there and have the ability to hire somebody, whether I need a grip, or I need a camera person, or a sound person, or a hair makeup, or a scripty, or whatever. And I'm just thinking, who in my head do I know does the job? For often is like usually the first bar to entry. So for instance, there's this one of my good buddies named Nick Blanchett. He does camera and he does G&E, right? So when I did this job in New York, it was a wedding, and I knew he did camera. I hired him as a photographer because I knew he did it. Me and him had just talked a couple days prior, which I knew that he still does that thing. He's still looking for work. He's still freelancing. And that's often how it is that so it isn't like if I or anyone don't hire you, or if I'm not hired. If you're sitting there and you are crewing up a film and I don't get a call to be in the G&E department, well, I might be like, that sucks. But also at the same time, like, I'm not going to sit there and cry myself a liver because I'm not going to take it personally. And the other coin of that is when you're on set, sometimes pressure on set is high because, you know, we need to get a certain amount of scenes done so we don't go into overtime. And there's a lot of pressure from a lot of different directions, doesn't matter who you are. You can be a PA, you can be executive producer. There's a lot of things going on at one time. And I've been on sets where I've been screamed at for a thing that isn't a big deal. Or I've screamed at other people for things that isn't a big deal. I was working on one thing and we couldn't find any C-47s. And I got yelled at because how do you not know where C-47s are? You gotta just take things on the chin sometimes. Because they might be yelling at you, but they're not yelling at you, if that makes sense. And that's why you should go look at my last video, which was about why athletes have a lot of success in this industry. Because that ability to know, just like when a coach yells at you, that they want, it's A, because they want you to be better, and B, it's sometimes just because, you know, you're down 45 points and 4 minutes left in the game. Your coach is frustrated. You know, we're 3 hours in overtime, and then I'm putzing around, not knowing where I can find, you know, the jerry can to fill up the Jenny, and all of a sudden I get a call on walkie, Kevin, where's that jerry can? So, you know. 3, speaking on this, because this goes hand in hand, you are going to mess up. You are going to mess up your job at one point or another. Doesn't matter who you are. There is no one who is perfect at the career. You're going to mess up something. You're going to break something. You're going to break something at location. You are going to do something. And honestly, my best advice in a situation is you gotta take it on the chin. Don't sit and hide it. Don't just, the second something's broken, immediately go to your supervisor. Like, hey, this happened. Like, it doesn't need to be full production, but there's nothing worse than, I heard a horror story one time that there was this crew working on this Airbnb and they're filming something in there, and there's this huge granite, like $1 million table. And then, you know, somebody drags something across the table and makes a deep cut into it. And they just try to hide it until, and then later they get a thing from the Airbnb and it becomes a whole ordeal. So if you do break something, because you're going to break something, immediately fess up to it. I remember I was working on this guy named Nate Airy set. First time ever working with him. We're working with an Aperture 1200. I worked with like once or twice before, and I left the foam protecting ring inside the reflector, and it melted. And like that could have caused a fire. And the second I noticed it, I brought it down. I went to Nate like, hey, by the way, I accidentally left this in. My bad. I'll buy you a new one if you need. Buy you a new one. It was completely my fault. Like, take accountability, because Nate has hired me since. Not because of that. There's a lot of other reasons, but if I sat and just pretended I didn't break it, I'm sure that would have gone a completely different way. So keep that in mind with things like that. And also, this is the golden rule for anything. If you don't know how to do something, just ask. Ask someone that knows. I was working on doing a car mount with a guy named Benjamin Topi. And I've done like a car mount here or there. You know, I haven't done a ton of them. And so I just went to Topi and I was like, can you double check my work? Because I don't want us to put the camera on it and then something happens and the camera breaks. That's my fault. Topi double checked it. Everything looked good. And then we're able to move on. And it's, you know, you gotta get some confidence under you so that you're not having someone double check your work all the time. But there's nothing wrong with it. If you are just not double checking, or I worked with a dude one time they came to me. And we're talking about, you know, we had 2 generators, and we had these certain amount of lights that we had to run. And he wanted to double check the math on, is this math, are we good, right? If I do, you know, RE M18 and a 1200 on one, and then M18 and 1200 on the other, like, we're just sitting there trying to do the math to figure out, to make sure we're doing it, and we double check the math, and we were able to run everything efficiently so that we didn't need to worry about it. But there's nothing wrong with double checking My issue, and I think a lot of other people's issue, is that if you're not learning. So I worked this movie with this guy named Noel Sadak, who usually is a grip and he worked as an electric. Early on, he had a lot of questions about electric stuff. I was a day player. Noel was on the whole thing. He was driving the truck. I was on like one of the first days and then one of the last days. On the last days, Noel knew more than me, and I was going and double checking with Noel about how we should run. How have you guys run this before? I want to make sure I run it how you guys are running it. That's why I think, like, if you are learning, no one cares. No one cares if you have a question, even if it's a silly question, because there are no dumb questions. Because if I asked Nate when I was working with the Aperture 1200, should I take the foam out or not? Like, if I asked him questions, I wouldn't have burnt the foam. That's in a microcosm, but these are the important questions, because everything is, you want to be safe and correct. Okay, 4. Learning healthy decompression techniques. Decompression is an important aspect of things because burnout is going to happen. I've known so many people who've gotten burnout. I know people who've retired due to burnout. And so finding things that help your mind stay sharp while also not reaching that burnout is important. I have had success with things like hiking, going to aquariums, fish tank maintaining, baking, playing Dungeons and Dragons, things like that nature. Well, some of those do use some of those same creative juices. It feels like it's like a different part of my brain. Because grip and electric and film feels like it uses a lot of math as well as a lot of just, like, because you're creating the scene out of nothing, right? Like, you're trying to find where can the light go, where can the this go, where can that go. Dungeons and Dragons is much more like, I have my character sheet and I have my dice and I just get to sit and play pretend for a little bit. And things like that have helped me decompress. And so find whatever that thing is for you. I'm not saying that what works for me is going to work for you. Maybe you are going to do better with things like watching anime or playing video games or baking or walking your dog. I don't know, but you have to find whatever that thing is. And this is the best thing to help you have long-term success. Lastly, and this is the most important, remember you're blessed. When I say that, people always kind of roll their eyes, especially in this. But you have to kind of realize that, like for me, I freelance full-time. I don't make any other income unless it's from film sets or film set adjacent jobs. That is a very privileged and blessed thing for me to say. I make good money doing that. And there's a lot of people who want to get to that point. There's a lot of people who are at that point, and there's a lot of people who are beyond me. But you have to realize that you're blessed no matter what stage of your career that you're in. Every day that you're in this industry is a blessing. And don't take it for granted. I'll end on kind of a sad story. Is how I got into this, and the reason why I'm so much for I want to make videos like this is there's a guy named Elmo, who, my first ever PA job, this guy named Donovan Jones. I was working at Amped, which is a company underneath the Neo Elite. I was working there as an intern, and Donovan Jones said, "Do you want to get into PA?" I said, "Of course." He gave my number to this guy named Elmo, who's one of his really good friends. Elmo, who never met me, gave me a random job out of nowhere. This woman named Trish Quinto. This was the very start of the snowball of my career. I worked on Kennedy Center Honors, which then led me to working on Capitol Concerts, which then led me to working on Cartel Crew Season 3, which led me to meeting Alex Hammett, which led me to being on Dante's Inferno, which all these gigs led to more gigs, and all of those other gigs led to me meeting people who led to further gigs. And it was all because Elmo gave me a shot in the dark. This eventually led me to working at a place called Right Brain, where I met Maya Elby and Brian Johnson. Brian Johnson would later help me get into the union. Maya Elby would later get me a ton of jobs. She helped me meet Sherwin, which led me to meeting Nate and Carl, and that led me to meeting those guys are some of my best friends in this industry, and meeting some of my even more friends in this industry. And sadly, I can't thank Elmo anymore, because early in my career, about a month after Elmo got my first job, he was sadly passed away. And he was 24. I'm 24 now. So that's the thing, that life isn't forever. This job isn't forever, you know. And so I hope, I want to enjoy this career for as long as I can and help as many people as possible have a long career in this. Maybe one day that'll lead me to being a professor or a teacher somewhere. But right now, it's me making videos and throwing them into the void. So I hope you enjoy this video. I hope you like, subscribe, and comment. I hope you see more. I hope you like the cowboy hat, because this is a long-term thing. Even though I'm from DC, yeah, I rock the cowboy hat. It's a nice one. It cost me a lot of money, so I'm going to rock it. Yeah, that's it for this one. See y'all in the next one.